So welcome everybody. Welcome to session 4 of Love Local. Absolutely delighted to have a fantastic panel. 2 of their moderators, really good friends, excluding Tim. I'm just kidding. Tim, we love you. Lou, we haven't chatted before, met, but I know you're close to Tim. So thank you so much for making the time. Today is quite topical. It's something we know that everyone on the North Coast is interested in and wants to talk about after schooling and some of the other things we've covered. And that specifically relates to hospitality. And we've taken a broad stance on it for today. We're looking at hospitality, covering accommodation, restaurants, tourism. And again, we've got a panel that really just talks well to that. I want to do a few intros. I think it's really, really important. And you'll notice in our sessions, we've done better and better at introducing our panel. We've come to realize our panel guests never boast about themselves. They're always very shy. So we'll do that. So we've got Brett from Mozambique. If you guys don't know him, how's it, Brett? He's a Swiss-trained chef, a restaurateur, and owner of Mozambique Group, which launched in 2005. Can you believe? He's got 17 stores, I think, Brett, nationwide. Well, that was pre-lockdown. And Mozambique is really one of our finest exports and success stories. He's really gone on to do really great stuff. And what's great is Brett stays quintessentially local and still loves the people of Belito while he's gone on to take on the world. And then we've got Louise. Louise is founder of Luxury Coastal Escapes. And so she works in short-term letting and lets out some of the nicest, most finest private homes here on the North Coast and in the Western Cape, Louise. So that's pretty cool. You're going to bring a different perspective to us, being able to speak in both areas. Obviously, you're South African. We'll get to hear the accent, but you returned from London a couple of years ago, which is great, working there for 14 years. So that brings a great international flair to the room. And I believe you started off as an estate agent in London in some of those sort of upmarket exclusive areas. And you've come back here. And so you've moved on to your own relocation company to assist executives and their families moving around. And you've come back home to Belito and you're looking after us on the North Coast. So welcome. And then lastly, I want to say a good friend, someone I've spent a lot of time with. We've done some fun stuff together, including our entrepreneur competition. Remember that thing, Cheryl? When we all look much younger and fitter, and for me, much thinner. So Cheryl is the manager of tourism, marketing, and investment for Enterprise Ilembe. She's a dynamic businesswoman. She's well-known, highly respected figure on the North Coast. Definitely cut her teeth and got scars to prove it in terms of promoting the area. And if you didn't know, Enterprise Ilembe is the economic development agency for our district. So she does get to work with politicians and business leaders and stakeholders. And they're responsible for trade and investment and promotion of the local economic development, as I stuttered a bit today, sorry. The vision for Enterprise Ilembe, guys, is to enable the district to be a destination of choice for investment, business, and tourism. And I can say, before I move on to Tim, that Cheryl is probably one of the greatest champions of our district. She travels a lot and really promotes so hard. So, you know, for the rest of us that live here, we know that Cheryl's got our back and she's out there. So welcome, Cheryl. Great to have you. And I actually must say, you're also a cover model. You've graced the cover of a magazine, a very well-known magazine called The Belito with some other strong ladies. So congrats. Last but not least is my partner in crime on Love Local and I Love Belito, Tim Johnson. He's the principal of Seat North Coast, but what you really don't know about him is before that, he ran a destination and branding consultancy for 8 years before he got into the real estate sector. So he has some specific particular interest and experience in this topic. And who knew that Tim had a life before SEAF? But he is actually an established businessman and thinks extremely well and strategically. So while I jabber a lot, he's the one that brings the frameworks and all the good structure to these shows. So thanks, Tim. Good to have you. So that's our intros and welcome panel. Welcome to everyone from Belito who's joined. Awesome to have you guys. And please use the chat, ask us questions. We'd love to interact. It's a really topical point. And just to let you know, the session is being recorded. And we will share it through all the social platforms for people to watch afterwards. That's way too much talking from our part. So I'm going to jump straight in. I think, guys, what's topical? We know that the, let's call it tourism and hospitality industry has taken a bit of a hammering with lockdown. You know, as a local, I love eating out. I love traveling, I mean, obviously in and outside our district. And we know that we want to present some challenges today. So the first thing I want to talk about, or one of the topics in the framework we go through today, is just setting the scene for it. And Cheryl, maybe the best person to do that is yourself. If you can maybe give us a macro view of what is Enterprise Ilembe and the groups you function with, what are they seeing, and really what is the damage? What has occurred? If that's okay.
Thank you. Morning, everyone. Great to have you on board. So Justin, maybe just from, as you said, from a macro level, COVID-19 has certainly had an impact, a major one at that, and not just for South Africa as we know, but worldwide. But maybe just looking at this region as the North Coast and what the impact has been to date since the first case was announced and since lockdown. So in 2019, when we did like an overall sort of statistics in terms of the number of tourists that come here and what is the impact, we had just over 1.1 million tourists visit the North Coast Ilembe region. And that equated to just over 5 billion to the economy or to the GDP of Ilembe, and creating just over 11,000 jobs. So when we did the impact assessment now for March and April, which is the 2 months of lockdown, and we will continue to do the assessment, there was a 91% decrease in tourists that came to the region. You will know that we lost the whole Easter season as well. And the loss to the GDP of the region was about 97%. So that is very significant. And in terms of job losses, if you had to equate both direct and indirect, over 2,000 jobs were lost during those 2 months. So the impact is really huge and really negative. And I mean, that's from a countrywide and also from a province-wide point of view as well.
Wow. Wow. I think this is the first time I've heard the numbers. We spoke briefly yesterday. Yeah, that's a little shell-shocked. And we knew that was, we knew the impact was there. I think everyone, Brett, Louise, so, we've all known, but I think it's the first time we're starting to see numbers emerge and people starting to get a sense of what the impact's been. Before I get on to the other questions, so thanks, Cheryl. Just Brett and Louise, what about you guys? Just a quick overview. What is your view and the impact been on this lockdown on your respective restaurants and accommodation businesses? Brett, maybe starting with you.
Well, it took us from a turnover. I'm going to leave March out because it was a bit of a half month. You must remember something. The restaurants were affected long before the lockdown started. When we had the cuts on liquor sales and the amount of people allowed in the restaurants. But we went from 20 million in February turnover to April of 108,000. So
wow.
It's huge. We've picked up this month just from a different way of thinking and so on like that, which has opened. This is part of life, I don't get too upset about it. It's just what happens. But it's opened up a whole new different side of our business that we never thought we'd ever go into. So yeah, it's been challenging. I started with not owing money, but we owe money now. I think there's a lot of us that do. So it's just how long we can hold on for. That's going to be the challenge. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Louise, what about yourself? Just quick as we get into the session, what's the impact been on you?
Well, I mean, the impact was our business is very seasonal, and obviously we had Easter coming up. It's nowhere near as busy as we are for December, but essentially everything was cancelled. I'd say probably about, in KZN, about 30 bookings, so which doesn't sound like a lot, but the homes are all high end, and so the value to each booking is high, and so all international guests had to be refunded in full, and a lot of South African guests have helped by postponing. So we've implemented all of our new cancellation policies in terms of COVID-19, and yeah, so people are still very optimistic, and South Africans are very hardy, and they still want to have their holiday, and they will book it for next month and cancel and book for the next month. And yeah, everything cancelled. Our turnover, our costs are not high because we manage properties for other homes, for other people. So homeowners have lost that predicted income. And they are the ones who have homes sitting empty with, a lot of them have live-in staff or they're sitting empty with no staff. So the security is a problem. And also a large part of my business is private homes that have families living in them, and they rely on that extra income of renting their homes out. So hopefully December happens for us as usual. That brings millions into the area each year, but into families' pockets. So yeah, we really hope that industry is still there in December. And we're still getting inquiries from international guests. Again, it's where do you take bookings? Do you not take bookings because there may be a cancellation? It's just going to be a refund that's going to happen in a few months' time, or so yeah, everything we're having to adapt and change all of our policies and booking policies and when money's handed over to owners and that sort of stuff.
Cool. And I think you teed up two good things there in terms of driving the discussion forward today. The one is, around the costs associated, because Brett, like you said, revenues drop off, so we're not making money. But I think what people intrinsically know but don't talk about is the reality that costs remain. And then it's a difficult process of now, how do you manage those costs? And then Louise, which I think is great that you teed up, and we're going to get to that hopefully a little bit further down the line where Cheryl can come back in, is to talk about what does the future hold. But I want to start off with just talking about cost cutting. I think I don't just want to talk about the woes of cost cutting, but to talk about how you guys are tackling it, your thinking behind it, and also share with the people of Ballito, what have you had to cut, if anything? What's the impact been? And how have you applied your mind around these? Because whatever you say could potentially be an idea or a thought process that sparks for someone local to go, wow, I didn't see it that way. I didn't think about it. As a restaurateur, there's some guys out there maybe struggling, Brett, that you might just give a pearl of wisdom to, and Louise, obviously on your side as well. So let's tackle, Brett, how about you? How have you tackled cost cutting? If the revenue's gone, obviously you've got to worry about the costs.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things. We've obviously gone to landlords and tried to negotiate with them. Some landlords have been great and have helped out a hell of a lot, and some guys haven't been able to. It's also their bread and butter. A guy that owns a strip mall doesn't have the pull that's on someone that owns the V&A waterfront. So that's our first step was to go speak to the landlords. The next thing was obviously the cost cutting on electricity, because we can't just turn off everything. We've got stock. When COVID hit, when the shutdown happened, I had 5 restaurants opening in 2 weeks. 4 new restaurants opening in those 2 weeks. So I had 4 million rands worth of stock ready to go, packed, trucks ready to go to Zambia, the whole lot. So now we've got to take it all back. It's been processed. Everyone wants a Mozambique chicken, but no, the supplier doesn't want it back as a Mozambique chicken. So we've got all this chicken, right? So we had to take it all back in. And one of the big things has obviously been electricity. We've still got, obviously, the landlords most of the guys have said, okay, let's not discuss rent, but pay rates, taxes, and those type of things. So we've had to pay those. Yeah, there's been loads of things, and never mind the staff. The UIF has been an absolute disaster. We managed to pay our staff the first month. Then we're now relying for this month on the UIF to kick in. We can only pay the staff that are working at the moment. Otherwise, we're going to have the same problem where we're going to have to turn off fridges, which is, do we come back to nothing or do we come back to something? And that is the big challenge. I know guys that are in the industry went into COVID with were already battling. Luckily we didn't owe anyone, and we're now struggling. So we've had to box smart as far as that. We've turned restaurants off, so we slowly go through. We switch off one restaurant, so there's no cold room. Move the stocker over. That took a while because we couldn't do it in the beginning, so we had to wait until we could get proper licensing. We've moved that stock over. The guys that are open, we've got some shops that are open doing takeaways. They've taken and they've helped the other guys move the stock over and trade it that way. I know a couple of the guys that locally in Belita that have taken their stock and they've sold it to their customers per se, like just like a guy wants like 5 kilos of hake. He's taken a box of hake and sold them the 5 kilos of hake and prawn and whatever the case is. So that's how the guys have managed to get through this. But it's going to be challenging. I don't know who's going to make it. We don't know. We don't know when the end is, and that's the biggest problem.
Yeah. Cheryl's got a crystal ball, so she'll tell us. Go for it, Tim.
Yeah, Brett, I just want to ask you something else on that. During that cost-cutting process, are there things that you see going forward will remain in place? Because obviously this has forced us to really look at the various line items and potentially there's certain luxuries or certain things that you might have been, employing before. So what, if any, of the cost-cutting measures do you think will probably remain in place post this, this time?
Well, we always rent things that we don't actually really need. Like, we don't know what we're coming back to. So when Mozambique Belita, I'll just take the one shop, for example, when it's full out pumping in December, it feeds 1,000 people a day. So are we going to come back to that? So the reality is, do we need to rent 2 dishwashers? So maybe we go, well, let's not get the dishwashers and let's go back to the old stainless steel table with hot water from a geyser and wash like that. Your point of sales, do you need 4 point of sales now, or do we just go to 2? So there's loads of things you can cut back on that. And you always find them on your bank account. As your business grows, you get to these situations where there's 4 DSTVs running through your bank account and you don't know who they are. I don't know if you're giving someone free DSTV or they're just on their accounts. So we've had to go through and we've tidied up a lot on that side of things. And obviously insurances, we've had to look. I mean, the insurances, we all know what's happening with insurance now. We take a business interruption and now when we need the first time ever, like, oh, well, no, this is not business interruption. This is a pandemic. So I mean, like, the insurances have come to the party. Thank you. May their generous hands never cramp. So they've gone through and sort of cut insurances down to like 70%. But the reality is we're not even trading. So before we would need insurances for someone getting hurt or whatever the case is. We don't need it now. I mean, to break into a restaurant now, what you're going to steal? There's nothing in there. You know what I'm saying? So you don't really need them. You could actually just close the doors and walk away for now. But yeah, there's those cost-cutting things have also gone into play. Vehicles that aren't being moved at the moment, so those are stored. They also going through checking on the insurances on that, and yeah, that's how we've managed to cut costs.
Awesome. Tim, if you could, let's move on to Lou. Brett's got a lot of moving parts, it seems like, in the restaurant business, and I'm sure for restaurants in a whole. What about you guys on the accommodation side? How have you approached cost cutting if you can?
Well, for us, Justin, the biggest thing has just been staff. We don't have a lot of staff, and a lot of them sort of work for themselves, so they consult for us. They're professionals. They take commissions from bookings. So it's reducing hours, trying to change people's roles from admin to marketing. I mean, all we can do is try and strategize, and the bookings aren't here now. We don't know when we can start taking them. I know Cheryl said she'll give us some advice on stage 3, but it's kind of trying to work out what it's going to be like when we can take bookings and what guests will want from a booking and what their concerns will be and who we can market to. If stage 3 is just KZN, we can only market to KZN. If it allows movement between borders, then we can market to other provinces, and then when it becomes international again. But I don't think we're feeling like that will be this year. Yeah. And then it's just looking at all the hygiene. There's all these cleaning companies popping up that are now doing fogging and cleaning of homes, and so we're sort of implementing changes where until December all of our homes are going onto a low season rate. So we don't know when school holidays will be. Whether there'll be half terms, and so everything is going on to a low season rate. We're only going to be marketing homes with live-in staff, so there's not that risk of COVID-19 being brought in on a taxi each morning, and none of our homes have pool maids, So they live in staff, they've been in the home, they have the PPE. So all we can do is build on that, and then having flexible cancellation policies and flexible booking policies. So people know if they book, they can change their dates if the house is still available when they need it.
Cool.
I think that sort of brings us on. Just we were talking about the, let's call it the framework. So what you've sort of started getting into there is something that's referred to out there as orderliness, which is essentially what steps, health and safety procedures, what sanitation procedures and training and protocols are being implemented by people in various sectors to essentially prepare, for customers, both now and going forward. So, just so you're happy if we shift maybe a little bit onto that.
I was going to segue into that because I think Lou teed it up really, really well.
Yeah, cool. So, I think there's obviously two different sectors there, but Lou, just you've obviously been touching on some of those things. Clearly, your customers have to feel comfortable. And I think ultimately they've got to be comfortable and they've got to be safe. And it's obviously the role of business owners in the sector to put in place those procedures that are going to minimize risk but also to give people that sense that they're not going into some sort of, quarantine, sterile environment, that then changes what it is that they're going there for. If I'm going to go and stay, visit somewhere, I want to feel like I'm on a holiday, and Brett, if I'm going to a restaurant, or if I'm going to be, experiencing that sort of thing going forward, I still want to feel like I'm, at Mozambique. So what are some of those practical, steps that you're both employing now and that you envisage you'll have to employ going forward in your respective businesses? Lou, do you want to just finish off what you were talking about? Because you've obviously shared a couple of those things. Is there anything else that you can think of before we shift to Brett?
Sure. I mean, I spend my days reading globally how the tourism market has been affected and the hotel industry. And I'm lucky enough to be in private residences, and the thinking is that is what will come back first, because they aren't shared spaces. In a hotel, even Airbnb, they've had to get rid of a quarter of their staff worldwide, and you're not just being rated on how luxurious the home is, or it's now cleanliness, and that is a box that you have to tick, and they have very strict protocols that they are bringing in. You can't have guests come in within 24 hours of the last leaving. You have to have a hygiene certificate done before each guest comes in.
Wow.
We would normally do welcome baskets with wine and biltong and all local products, but you're bringing, COVID-19 could have come in on any of those things. So it's having the live-in staff, having them have their PPE, taking their temperatures the day before when we check the homes, the day of the guest arrival. These sort of things that sound quite militant, but the guests wouldn't be aware of them. They just know a certificate's been signed off, that's been checked. And then having the homes fogged, so they'll be cleaned. And that's whether that's included in the fee or whether it's an additional that the guest wants to pay for. But they will still have access to a large beach house that has all the staff they need. They have access onto the beach when they're allowed onto the beach. But there's no communal facilities, whereas in a hotel, everything has been, touched a few times. And I think that'll take longer to come back, is the hotels. And going back on our, we have a large market of private homes where families rely on that income. And I'm not sure how long that will take to come back, where people want to go and stay in someone's home. Either they'll say, we don't want the staff to come in, the maid, we don't want her to come in anymore. She can get the house ready, you can fog it. But it's just adapting. And all of the inquiries that we have coming in, no one is asking about our hygiene protocols. But I think we need to take that responsibility and make it a standard, at least until December, and see how it goes.
And that's great insight. Thank you. Before we get on to Brett, because I do want to talk health, safety, what you guys are doing now and moving in the future, but I don't want to lose a point and also not take us down a rabbit hole. But Cheryl, Lou said something that I think is quite key, and that was, I think we don't understand the impact on a lot of what we're going to have to do moving forward on local business and micro business. So, we know a lot of guest houses, bed and breakfast, say, for example, buy soap products manufactured by really small little traders locally, the little gift baskets where they've got key rings that are dolphins and, so sort of that micro trade. And I was just thinking when Lou was talking, because we're going to be so nervous and hesitant and have to worry about sterilization and prep, there's a compounded effect, even if indirectly, on those guys. I mean, their trade's going to be affected and stuff, won't it?
Absolutely, Justin. I think it's already been affected badly as well with COVID, because there's a lot of informal businesses in the district. You'll know that Ilembe is largely made up of informal rural areas, and a lot of these rural women, especially with the arts and crafts, rely on the income that they would get from sales made in areas like Ballito and through the hotel industry. And even the restaurant industry, because a lot of local restaurants also support local farmers and buy local. So they have also been badly impacted. But that's why I think the whole support local campaign needs to forge ahead. And if we can have the necessary protocols in place to ensure that we continue to support the informal sector, there's no reason why we shouldn't be able to still do it. And maybe just to add to what Lou was saying is that there has been a document that has been developed by the Tourism Business Council of South Africa in conjunction with other partners and working with Department of Health. So it's a tourism protocol for business operations that'll enable businesses as they start to operate again to follow these protocols, covering exactly what you were saying around, hygiene protocol and your staff not carrying your guest luggage and them carrying it themselves. So that document's a very detailed document, and I think will be very handy for businesses or establishments, whether it's hotels or B&Bs or private homes, to use that document to start to implement and get ready then for when tourists start to come back.
Great. Cheryl, can we get that? Is it publicly available? Because we'd love to share it with, obviously the panel and all our guests and through our platforms.
Absolutely. The document has been revised and finalized. I have a copy, and whichever is the best way, we can share it with no problem.
Thanks. Brett, coming back to health and safety, Tim's topic, what does a restaurant look like in future? What are you doing? I know we don't know when, but when we do get back, what's it going to look like for you?
So first of all, you're going to have the double split of staff, right? So you're going to have to make sure that we have some sort of split in our staff. So if we do get a case, we can shut down, sanitize, reopen, because the reality is we can't open to close. So we have to, when we've been planning heavily on that side of things. The other side is obviously it's just absolute sanitizing of everything. So it's even now at the moment with our distribution running at the moment, it's like in the morning we get everyone temperatures taken. Okay, everyone's got their own sanitizing bottles. Then we go through, we spray down. At 12 o'clock, we spray down again. Before we close, we spray down again. I'm Catholic. We do 3 Hail Marys for our fathers. So it's a whole process, and obviously making sure that the guys are very aware of it. I mean, the whole social distancing. I mean, my distribution's not big, so we have to make sure that the guys are far apart from each other, faces covered. The other side of it is, when you start talking and eventually you've got your mask on like this, and then you start pulling it down so people can hear you. You know what I'm saying? And then you've got to say, hey guys, you can't actually do that. You need your mouth covered. So it's a continuous like running around with a stick, smacking people to make sure they're doing the things and getting used to it. The funny thing is my management are the problem. my working staff all stick to the rules. The manager's the one that you have to go through and say, keep your mask on, do that. You know what I'm saying? So it's a full-time policing job, basically. Wow. But moving forward on the restaurant side of it is, like with Belita, the store in Belita, I'm lucky because we've got 1,500 squares. My store in Linksfield is 3,500 squares. Store in V&A is about 180 squares. So with Belita, I could fit 200 people in there with social distancing, perfect. There'd be meters between tables. Then the other side of it is we've already started looking with Gav, the guy that builds our shops, on moving forward and how we start building booths, basically. So people will sit in a booth. So that's going to be the next step. On the smaller stores, it'll have to go to that sort of booth thing where the guys can walk in. The other side of it is, what do we do as far as waiters are concerned? Do we have waiters now? Or do we put a thing like Rockamama's does, and you tick whatever you need, and then we go put the order through, for you? Or is there an app that we will use? Those challenges are going to come up soon, and I'm still in two minds on how we go about it. We've already got available at Mozambique an online takeaway ordering system. So will there be an online thing where you actually log on, order your stuff, and pay for it, and then it'll be delivered to your table? That's future Brett's problem, not present Brett's problem. So there is going to be that side of it. But I mean, in general, restaurants anyway are the sanitizing is a big part of it. I mean, if we, especially like the likes of fish restaurants, I mean, if you don't have any sort of sanitization, your restaurant will stink of fish very, very quickly. You know what I'm saying? It's one of those things. So it's available then. It's always been, the chemicals that you use for sanitizing haven't changed. If I look, I get from a local supplier who's registered, proper, certified, and the whole lot. He's got a sanitizer we actually spray and leave. It's food grade, and it's not alcohol based, but it's one of the better ones because it's on the surfaces permanently. So you spray it and you leave it, and it lasts, I think, 2 days or something like that. So as long as it's there, and that's what we actually spray everything down with continuously through the day.
Rich, you're allowed to say his name, huh? So he doesn't have to pay for advertising.
I don't really like him as a person, so he's got a very good. No, I'm joking. It's Dion from Zolkim.
We all know Dion. Awesome.
Yeah, so
Dion's going to be particularly bummed about no surfing at the moment. So, Brett.
Yeah, definitely.
But Brett, I'm going to jump in because you raised a good point, and I think I haven't prepped the panel at all, so everyone listening knows. I mean, we're going through the questions and the framework as we go, but you just teeing up nicely. Lou, you made the transition to sort of the health and safety stuff well. Brett, you transitioned to what we call digitization and online well. And so let's talk to that a bit. I mean, I'm a techie by heart. I love a world that, is efficient and optimized, but I'm also a huge pundit for love local. Like when you talk about little tick boxes and online ordering, all I think is, hey, I'm not going to see a waiter. I'm not going to get a bit of banter. I'm not going to have, the conversation time. So part of me feels like we may lose something. But the reality is, a sterilized, cleaner world may be a digitized world. So what have you guys done? And then Lou, we'll jump on to your side as well. So I know you've progressed a little. Share with us. Like, has it forced you to go more online? Were you already there? Do you see that sticking around? And I know that is future, Brett, but you stepped into it, and it's definitely something we want to chat about.
Lou or me? Sorry. Me.
You, Brett.
Yeah. Sorry. So yeah, Justin, sorry. On my side of it, I hate the idea of an app in a tick box because I come from Shongweni, so nothing really scares me. So for me, I'd rather go, well, let's nail this thing on the head and get it over with, and see how Christmas works out. Maybe our granddad won't be with us, but that's me, Then that's the type of person I am, Yeah, it's for me. I don't want it to be the future. Put it that way. I think it's a necessity for now, for people to feel comfortable. But yeah, for me, it belongs there. But for me, I still think a restaurant is not just the food. It's also the staff that are there. It's the whole ambience, and that's created by the people that you employ and so on like it. And obviously, it's a great form of job creation. To become an entrepreneur, first of all, you've got to take the idea of you're not going in there. Your first and foremost thing is to create employment, and that's the whole thing. So yeah, does it belong? Yes, it does. Is it the future of our business? Well, COVID's not the future of the world. It's just now. So it will move on. And everyone knows what would you guys do right now to go have a beer with a friend of yours? What would you do right now to sit in a restaurant and have a chat? I mean, I would kick an old man to do that. You know what I'm saying? So you know what I'm saying? So for me, it's such an important part of being a human. You know, that we need that touch and feel of people and so on like that. And I talk to people all the time, and the one thing that always comes back is that, yes, I miss seeing people. You know, I miss just talking, just whatever the case is. Walking on the beach, you know, that type of thing. Seeing people, you know. I mean, I bumped into one of our customers. I dropped off a box the other day. She was like, "Oh, Brett, it's so good to hear your voice," and I got a funny voice, so I mean,
Brett, but I want to jump in there. I think like what's important for everyone not to lose sight of is that when things open up, and we'd like that to happen, honestly, sooner rather than later, it's the choice. It's going to be a choice for people, you know, and those people that choose to go and experience Mozambique or any one of our other many amazing, you know, restaurants or destinations on the North Coast, or choose, Lou, to go in and have a holiday. As you said earlier, you alluded to, people want to still believe that they can go down and have a holiday. They still, in fact, this hasn't felt like a holiday for a lot of people, even though they've been kind of at home. They feel like they want to go out there and experience that. And I think that's the thing. It's choice. So yes, it's very important for us as business owners to make people feel comfortable. And it's very important for us to take the, you know, health and safety and protocols seriously, obviously. But I think you'll find, Brett, that those people coming back to Mozambique are going to be the exact people that are going, you know what, I'm prepared. I know you're going to look after me. I'm coming here. I want to just engage. I want to get back to normal, in inverted commas, you know, and have all of that stuff just happening kind of quietly, efficiently in the background, you know, as you say. And I think that's the most important thing, because sentiment is going to be the thing that drives people back into the hospitality trade, without a shadow of a doubt. And we've got to keep sending that messaging out to the public, and making them not feel guilty if they are the ones that feel like they're prepared to take the risk, you know, and go back. They must feel like comfortable and embraced, and must encourage people. We mustn't shame our neighbors. My wife would do it tomorrow. I mean, in fact, if she left me, she'd probably come sniffing around Mozambique because she loves your cooking.
Awesome. Guys, I'm conscious of time. That's a great topic. And we've spoken a bit on digitization. Lou, what about you? I mean, I assume in your world, it's already digitized, right? You know, we book accommodation online, you communicate online. Has it shifted? Has it changed anything? Or in the business I'm involved in outside of the magazine, you know, I'm in the software world. I speak to guys in the US. You know, when they said you have to stay at home and speak to people online and use Slack and video conferencing, I was like, I've been doing that for 2 years. So, you know, I felt comfortable with it. So, yeah, just from your point of view, has digitization or online shifted at all?
No, still, you know, we don't deal with guests more than on the phone until they arrive. So, and we haven't had that opportunity to be with guests since this lockdown. So, you know, whether we were there in person to check them in, or whether, you know, we just wore PPE, or whether we said there would be no one there to check you in, it would just be the live-in staff. If anything, it's doing more sort of polls on Facebook, finding out what people would want. You know, how would they want anything different? What would they want the extras in the house? You know, or is that more risk to them? Do they want someone there to check them in, or are they happy with a phone call? I think it's just doing polls and seeing what would make people more relaxed in booking. And it's also difficult because you can't just book accommodation. It's whether your flight will get you there, or whether we go back to stage 4 and the borders lock again, and then you can't drive there. And so it's not just, am I going to get my rental money back? Is, am I going to get my flight money back? And all the other costs involved in getting to the accommodation. So it's it was completely different to Brett. I mean, you know, all of us are racking our brains to see how we can support the restaurant industry. And, you know, for me, it is what it is. And bookings will come back because everyone needs holidays. We're lucky we live on the coast. We can see the sea if we want to. But you know, there's people who've been locked down in Johannesburg and they stare at their garden wall. Yeah. And they have road traps, you know, as they leave their driveway. So I think we've had it a lot better. Seeing the sea and smelling it helps. But yeah, you know, I always keep thinking, I remember growing up and we had Diners Club where you paid, you know, a monthly subscription and towards a whole lot of restaurants, and whether you got a small discount when you went to eat at that restaurant, but you paid a monthly subscription. You know, locals in Ballito are awesome. You know, they will support a business. If it's a good business and it's, you know, it looks after its clients, the support is amazing. Yeah. And, you know, even with this voucher system where people have been able to buy vouchers, and eventually when everything reopens, you can go and get double what you paid for or whatever. But I think, you know, there's so many restaurants that we have. I think if we can have a way of getting locals through all the doors, having I don't know, whether they can do reviews, whether they can help and pay a minimal monthly subscription.
Yep.
Because there's so many restaurants, I can't say I have my favorites and that's what I go to. I think you don't venture away from what you know. But in the last few years, we've had hundreds of restaurants open and close.
That's also true. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
so,
fair point, Lou. So, and sorry to cut you short. I want to jump on, if you don't mind, as we move through this. I wanted to pose this to all of you guys because you know, on the digitization side, and I think you touched on the point, but I'm just going to throw it out to Cheryl if it's topical or not, and then we're going to move on to collaboration. And that's, Cheryl, have you heard anything about how the digital world and the platforms have created more exposure for our environment or not? So we know people can't come here, but I mean, we put out a thing on I Love Ballito where we got people to log into webcams that showed pictures of our beach, and we just put that post up. And I was like, it'll be all right. And it went insane. Like, you know, just so many people were sharing it all over saying, you know, it's great to just see willards. So I guess the question is, if you know, is there anything out there where people are saying, wow, because people are at home, they're consuming more tourism related content and they're getting quite excited about going? Or was it flat?
Absolutely, Justin, agreed. I think during lockdown, even if you look at the amount of data that was consumed, with everyone being in lockdown, everybody's been on social media platforms, on their cell phones. And as a tourism industry through the province of KwaZulu-Natal, we jumped onto that bandwagon as well in terms of marketing and promotions, where we try to just keep the whole of emotional part of traveling alive with the KZN Believe It campaigns, where we kind of put out videos saying this is what you're missing out on, but great experiences still await you. It's still here. And digital was the way to do it, and that's what we did. And I think digital for marketing and promotion is going to be around for a long time, especially seeing as, you know, a lot of the tourism travel shows have been cancelled. You know, there's Africa Travel in Durban, which should have taken place in May, and World Travel Market and ITB. Some of the biggest international travel shows cancelled. And I don't think that's going to come back for a long time. Yeah. So digital platforms, unfortunately, for marketing and promotion is going to be the way to go for at least the next 18 to 24 months until we can start to have face-to-face interactions with the travel trade and with tour operators. We're also now working on a local campaign with Tourism KZN to try and localize this whole hashtag see you soon or hashtag believe it, so we can keep the destination top of mind at all times. So when borders open and everyone's ready to travel, you know, we need to make sure that we're there top of mind. Oh, we saw that. Yes, let's, you know, give the guys a call and let's get down there. So that's what we're busy with at the moment.
I love that. I really do, because there's nothing else we can do except say top of mind. And you know, and then the North Coast is such a beautiful place. Lou, you had me hooked when you started. I started smiling when you turned around and spoke about we live by the sea, you know, just, and not smiling because other people don't get it, just smiling because I live by the sea. I keep forgetting, you know, we are on holiday. Yes, we're working stuff, but there are guys in Blikkiesfontein who, you know, would kick an old man to have what we have, using Brett's expression. So, cool. Let's move on. I think the last two topics, just collaboration. Tim and I have spoken a fair bit about this. You know, it's key for us under the Love Local campaign. We're doing this not to try and drive any hidden agendas. It's truly just conversations. Let's talk to people. What are people doing? Spark an idea, help a mate, help a business. And so that's really been our thing, is like the collaborative part of it. Tim loves this stuff. So Tim, I'm gonna let you lead this specific theme if you don't mind. You ask questions way better than I do, so I'm gonna sit back and listen. So knock it off.
Yeah, thanks, Just. Yeah, so collaboration, guys. I mean, I think we've all agreed that the success of and the recovery process is going to be far more effective if we work together as a sector. And I think that this idea of kind of being individual or almost being in competition with one another needs to go. So there's been quite a few examples at the moment of collaboration in the sectors, and so I wanted to just ask a couple of questions on that. Brett, I'll start with you. The first that I saw a sort of interesting little bit of collaboration was when I got a flyer sent digitally, as it were, and it spoke to a collaboration that Mozambique was having with Mama G's, another restaurant in the area. And it spoke to almost the sharing of a kitchen and sharing of delivery services. Can you explain what that was about, and sort of, and how it came about, and potentially how it kind of worked for that period?
So it was one of our obviously, first of all, how we started is we have a Bleater Restaurant Association, because when I first got here, the guys used to fight and hate on each other. So I was like, I actually can't do this. We're all here, and I'm going to run out of fish on a Sunday, so I'll need your help. So we need to work together. So Ant from Mama G's phoned me and said, listen, let's set up something. And Untitled Country Club will help us with deliveries, because obviously we started with deliveries. So we can use the same drivers. We can use the same sort of front of house people to take the orders, pack the orders, etc. And we'll run our kitchen. We worked out that Mama G's could take the one side and Mozambique could take the other side, and then together we'd make Mozambique's. So that's how we started. And like Ants is one of my very good friends. So I was over the moon that we could at least have someone to talk to, you know, that we could sit and we could go through a couple of things. And yeah, I said, that's fantastic. That's how we kicked it off. What has happened with that, which has been fantastic, is we've seen light in a couple of options here, where I was like, you know, Ants, if I look at the likes of Untitled Country Club, I lose this business. I don't trade during the day. I trade at night. You know, you're either looking at the sea or playing golf, and I miss that era. Yeah, it's a part of the business, but we don't have a big part of it. It's not a big part of our business. Our trade is nighttime trade. He says, well, I've got the opposite. I said, so he said, I want to talk to you about something. I said, I think what you're thinking is what I'm thinking. So I said to him, shall we put Mozambique here as well? He was like, yes. So moving forward, Mozambique's will stay on at Untitled Country Club. So he'll also have a product that he doesn't have at the moment, and concentrates on pizza pasta, and we're adding a big part of grill in there, which will help his side, because I mean, eventually what will happen is the guy will have to go, he's with his buddies during the day, and at night time he has to go sit with the wife and children at Mozambique at night. And it gives them the option of having both. Staying that, it didn't stop there. And I said, well, do you know, there's premises next door to us, I think, that are coming up, and maybe we should do a pizza shop there. So even though we go, oh, the restaurants are closing now, we're really working on opening another restaurant. So with that offers another side of it, because I know kids go, oh, goody, yay, chicken strips again, where they would kill for a pizza. so we could work nicely on that, so we collaborate, and we have the idea of food swapping. And yeah, so for me, it's a collaboration throughout my whole business career has been a big part of my business. And if you don't understand it, if you're that pig-headed and that narrow-minded, you're not going to go anywhere. You will always have your little corner shop, sitting in a corner, doing nothing, ticking over, working like a dog, instead of having an idea that the world's your oyster and you open up to the world, and that people will open up to you, and that's how you grow it.
Yeah. Brett, it's amazing. That's such a great story. I'm sure that's going to inspire a lot of people that have been thinking about this, maybe thinking, would that be acceptable? Would it be, again, frowned upon? I think it's incredible. It's an awesome example. And it kind of leads me to something that Lou then touched on earlier, where you sort of spoke about things like Lou was saying, how do we support, I want to find ways to support, local businesses. And you're saying, how do I support restaurateurs? I think it'll extend even further than that. And the question really to you then is, in the tourism sector, in the hospitality sort of accommodation sector in particular, it makes a lot of sense, to be collaborating with restaurants, with other service providers, and rather maybe outsourcing than sort of insourcing in that front. So, what are some of your thoughts in terms of collaboration, and have you been able to find any or thought of any different partnerships that maybe that you've implemented previously or that you're considering implementing going forward?
We've always, supporting local has always been our thing. So, as far as we can go, the guests, the process of selecting the home, choosing the home, because I have, just in KZN on the Dolphin Coast, we have over 100 homes. So we're it's quite an intense process with selecting the home that suits them and their requirements. And then it's going through, I have another section of the business called Our Pantry, where we will bring in, we can organize specialty wines or beers. So we use someone specifically for that. We have different chefs that we work with. So if they want a chef dinner party, or if they want catered food brought in, and we have had restaurateurs contact us during this time to say, would you, can I offer my services? And sure, anything we can do to help. And the most we can do is point people in the right direction, and services and providers that are local, that we who give a good service, who we've used in the past, we will always promote them. But that's about as much as we can do. We can't force people into buying other products or taking other services, but we can certainly put them in that direction and guide them as to what the purpose of their holiday is. Is it a family get-together? Is it a birthday celebration? Is it a wedding? And we work with wedding planners, we work with photographers, florists. So whatever that guest needs, we will put them in the right direction.
And all local, certainly most of it local, I'm sure. Cheryl, to just maybe wrap up this particular topic on collaboration, I was really, I've heard about Brett's association, where he basically put together a sort of informal, it's formal but informal collaborative or collective of local restaurateurs, which is amazing. I've chatted with a couple of other restaurateurs that are on that. I thought it was hugely innovative. In terms of tourism in Alembe, what are the sort of channels that local, hospitality and business owners can maybe participate in, that they can share notes, that they can collaborate effectively if they're looking to get involved in that?
So Tim, what we're looking to do is, we were in the process of establishing a district tourism forum just before COVID hit. So I think the time now is very perfect to get that up and running. But just on that, to say that I think through all of the recovery plans that we're working on, at a district level, provincial, and a South African level, what's coming out very strongly is that we are not going to be able to recover if we don't collaborate and work together. So I think if we're going to be, as Brett was saying, sitting in our little corner and thinking that it's all going to be fine, it's not going to be fine. So we have to work together. So from Enterprise Alembe's point of view, we will play a coordination role. And I think as well, in terms of going forward, we need to look at packages. So, you know, Louise has got the products, Brett's got the meals, but there's another sector, you know, the attractions and the adventure and the sports and all of that. So if we can start to package and come together as a sector and then take those packages to markets, then, you know, people buy a package, say it includes flights and a car hire and accommodation and, you know, a meal and a microlight flight or whatever. We'll be able to then, from a district point of view, market those packages strongly through the platforms and through the partnerships that we have, leveraging off Tourism KZN and South African tourism. And that's the only way then we can start, you know, slowly but surely try and recover the tourism economy in the district. So as Enterprise Ilembe, we would be that coordinating partner, and we are open to, you know, for suggestions and input from the sector in how we can make it work. Also working closely as well with the private sector, business sector, being the chamber, Ilembe Chamber as well. So, yeah.
Cheryl, I mean, that's incredible. I think that, you know, the idea of bundling or packaging, as you call it, has always been around in marketing. It's obviously very effective, but certainly rethinking maybe how we do that here, you know, makes a huge amount of sense. And I think what's good about it as well, Cheryl, is that if our consumers or our customers understand that those experiences and packages have been carefully curated to kind of and personalized as well, because I think a lot of people, we spoke about it in a previous session, you know, people want personalization, but they also want to be responsible with how they spend their money. So if we kind of responsibly curate packages that sort of are very personalized for our you know, consumers, it's kind of, we take the hassle out of making decisions. They know their money is going to where it needs to go. They know they're supporting local. They know they're supporting the economy, and they're getting it done in a nice, easily, you know, nicely packaged with a bow way. So that's very exciting. And we'll watch the space, and we'd love to participate in whatever way we can, certainly, to help with that.
Absolutely.
And I think it leads us onto, I'm wary, you know, of the time, but it leads us probably then nicely onto the final element that we wanted to chat about, which we have touched on, and that's the idea of domestication. There's no doubt that you know, that international inbound type of travel is going to be stunted for some time to come. And I'm going to start with you, Cheryl, on that, and then we'll filter across the panel. But obviously, domestication refers specifically to sort of that localization, local tourism, and how do we offer packages? How do we encourage local tourism and local support of our businesses? So in that sense, Cheryl, if we could start with you, I know you're quite heavily involved with things like the routes, the flights, airline routes into Shaka, and obviously there's been a lot of changes there, but you're involved in a lot of inbound tourism. What's your sense of how we can go about creating that local, domestic sort of support, and yeah, what is your thoughts there?
So yes, based on again, going back to recovery plans, the focus is definitely going to be on domestic tourism. I think, Louise, you were asking earlier about our international borders. That's going to be closed for a while. Domestic tourism, I think, with level 3 now, business travel is going to be allowed. So that's a sector of the market that we also shouldn't ignore. While leisure tourism is our bigger share of the tourism market, business traveling as well is pretty key. So we need to look into that at level 3. What the protocols are going to be, we don't know quite yet. I'm hoping that within the next few days, before 1st of June hits us, we'll be able to get details in terms of whether you know, business travelers will need permits and all of that, but we'll share that as it comes. But yes, domestic tourism has to be our focus, because that's going to be our bread and butter for the next, you know, few months, as soon as we reach level 1. And when we say domestic tourism, we're talking the entire South Africa, but we also got to look at boundaries. You know, people from Pietermaritzburg love getting away for a weekend, or, you know, the Midlands. So we need to look also at closer proximity, not necessarily, you know, visitors from Gauteng, although that will be ultimately who we want to target. But I think what we also need to bear in mind is that coming out of the COVID-19, not everybody is going to have disposable income to travel. So those are kind of, we got to look at all of that. So the different target markets that we're going to approach, how we're going to approach them, what packages we're putting together for these different markets. So there's a lot of work ahead of us, Tim. But as I said earlier, if we collaborate and work together, certainly it's something that's not impossible. But domestic tourism for the next 18 months will be our focus until such time as our borders can be open for international travel.
Fantastic, Cheryl. Lou, we always used to refer to something as staycation, and it's normally for us budget-conscious holiday makers. But if I suppose, what is your feeling? You're dealing with local homeowners. It's obviously a mix of international and national guests. What are the opportunities? I mean, we've got domestic travel also includes things like business travel, as Cheryl has mentioned. And of course, there might be opportunities in and around, for the moment, quarantining, maybe frontline workers and healthcare professionals that might require a bit of a break, or maybe, less risk, around their families, because this will obviously continue for a while. So what's your feeling on the domestic market and how you guys can play your part?
Well, so Tim, typically our pre-COVID-19, our bookings were 80% South African, so which was growing since King Shaka was bringing in, more international flights, European flights, but we still have a very strong South African market. And, whether coming out of this post-COVID-19, I think most people will have less money. And will be less likely to spend it, and will be more anxious about spending it, because there's so many variables that will, could change. You don't have complete control over, we all feel like we've been put in a corner and blindfolded and told to not move and make money. So all you can do is think and try and change how everything works. But in terms of my business and the structure, we specialize in big homes. So they are typically 5, 6, 7 bedroom homes. So it would be interesting to see how we could work. I mean, any kind of work that we can do would be great. So quarantine facility, business, it's not your typical B&B where it's a one room, would take a traveler overnight or for a few nights. They're huge homes, and all the homes are owned privately by homeowners. So it would be getting their sign off that they're happy with that, and the costs associated, whether we open a whole house for one traveler, whether it's worth it for them. But there is that sense of obviously wanting to help, particularly with the quarantine, if we can and how we can. I suppose it's just being given those the brief on what you need to be, how you need to provide, what you need to provide, to see if we can help.
Lou, I think, just to finish that up, I mean, the one thing is that I think you've got the ability to be nimble and to be a bit more agile with your thinking, and I like what you said before. It's just about communication. You've got to communicate with the various stakeholders, communicate with your customers. What are we looking for? How can we curate, our experiences for you? So there's lots of opportunity, no doubt about it. Yes, there's quite a few unknowns, but let's support local. We definitely, from a local travel perspective, I mean, there's still huge opportunities for people to come and visit, and it's not just your particular sector. I think even the guest houses and other accommodation in the area, so there's lots of opportunities. I think places that people can drive to, as well, and avoid flying will be very popular. And we're a drive away from Gauteng as well, so we don't have that added barrier of having to, let's say, drive a day and a half, 2 days to Cape Town. So I think that our region becomes a lot more accessible to that domestic travel. So yeah, Brett. So I mean, local. I've lived in the area my entire life, and I've seen restaurants come and go. Generally, the restaurants that have gone have been the ones that have focused far too much on seasonal trade. They've focused very little on the local market and on locals and building relationships with regular customers. This particular pandemic has absolutely highlighted that for me in particular. And I feel that those restaurateurs and those businesses that have had a far greater connection with the community have been the ones that have been able to weather the storm through the support of their loyal customers. So from your perspective, in terms of supporting local and building your business for the future based on local trade, what is your perspective to finish off in terms of that?
Well, the fun fact is that if you've concentrated on your holiday makers, you've made a vital mistake there, because we don't spend 70% of our time on holiday. You know what I'm saying? So it's, if you don't have the local support, you don't have a business. If you think about it, I mean, who are you going to ask? What's the famous saying? Oh, we were in the Argyle one time, and you must speak to the locals about the place where they have the chicken, you know, whatever the case is. So yeah, I mean, we all know that the likes of TripAdvisor and stuff, those things are easy, can be diddled. I mean, look at that guy that got to #1 restaurant in London, and it was his backyard.
Yeah.
So I mean, so all those things can be diddled. So you have to rely on your locals. I mean, it's the way forward. And how do you do it? Is probably just, well, not probably, the only way is supporting 100% local. Try to do everything that you do, from buying to who builds, whatever the case is, must come from a local supplier, you know. And I think moving forward, South Africans are going to push for that anyway, because they've realized how important it is, and not just in Belita, but I mean South Africans in general, just all over, will really start to push for local spend, because they've realized we're all in this and we all need each other's help, and that's the only way forward.
Agree.
Awesome, Brett. Well, Just, do you want to? Thanks, guys. Just, do you want to wrap up? We definitely
Absolutely
at the end.
We've
So
definitely
yeah,
gone over time. So thanks, Tim. To the panel, firstly, thank you again. You know, it would be great to have a session where we had the crystal ball, and Cheryl, I won't put you on the spot for it. You've shared some really good things in terms of just knowing or getting a sense of what's coming up. And it's great to know that locally we've got people representing, you know, both at a district, provincial and a national level. So thanks for that. And I think we need to tap into the knowledge and information you guys have more, rather than, you know, these crazy WhatsApp groups and Facebook posts that say we doomed and gloomed. You know, let's get it from valuable sources. To Brett and to Lou, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. I think for me to wrap, normally we'll let each person give a little wrap up, but we are running out of time. So I'm gonna take the view of, if you don't mind giving me 2 seconds. I keep saying it, people over profit. To the panel, I think you've reiterated that again. You know, and to all our panel guests we have on every session, people just going, listen, let's care for each other, let's collaborate, let's love local. That's definitely not a mindset of hustle and steal. So thanks for reiterating, you know, that the heart is important, that loving local is there. And then to Cheryl, you know, you raised some interesting numbers. I wrote them down next to me. I don't think, guys, that we're going to get through this unless we collaborate, unless we work together, because you can't fix a 91% decrease in tourism and a 97% smack to your GDP locally, and the loss of 2,000 jobs if we don't all rally together and say, okay, how do we help each other? And that's the essence of Love Local. So I'm stoked. Thank you so much for your time again. To the panel. To Tim, I'll see you next week, Thursday. I think we're doing property next. If not, we definitely need to talk property at some stage. And I look forward to seeing you. So thank you so much, guys. And we're going to step out. Sage, if you don't mind taking us out of here in the next 3 seconds, that'll be great. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you soon.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Bye.
Cheers, guys.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.